So here I am making my first YouTube video, and you're probably wondering who I am. I am a new player in the Digimon card game, and I'm new to producing content. Only been playing this game for about 2 months, and when I went to my first locals a couple of weeks ago, I decided after losing for the third time in a row that in 2 years I'm going to attend a regional tournament or a nationals level tournament and make top cut in 2 years. So mark it, March 2027. And from what I've seen in these last 2 months, there isn't a lot of content that's centralized in one place that really focuses on helping the new player adjust to the game. I've had to scour different parts of Reddit, in the Discord space, and in different websites to kind of scrounge around these different resources. And luckily enough, when I did attend my locals, the people that I met there were incredibly helpful in terms of giving me new cards and kind of getting me more comfortable with the game itself. So that's one of the reasons I want to start this channel, because one, um, I want to focus on the casual player in this early part of my journey to grow this space, grow the card game, and make sure that the Digimon card game is successful for years to come. Two, I think I can present a unique perspective within the content space and the other DigiTubers as a new player. And three, uh, just want to track my own journey from a new player into, hopefully in the next 2 years, um, becoming a kind of some kind of achievement in the regionals or at the nationals level. And fourth, it'll be fun. I've never done something like this before, and I just want to see if I can commit to something like this and learn a new skill. Now, there's one thing I do want to talk about, and not just do a simple 1-2 minute video, but there's a lot of videos out in the YouTube space that talked about the most recent ban list that happened over the weekend. And I'm not going to offer my specific opinions on each of the individual cards. I think there's plenty of videos out there already where those people do a much better job than I can kind of explaining the game. But I just want to talk a little bit about, from like a macro level, what I learned from Bandai's ban list, and just kind of share those thoughts with all of you. Before I go into these ideas, I want to first say and recognize that Bandai, they know and understand the cards that they want to release in the next 6 to 9 months. So even though some of the bans may not make sense, and even to me they don't make sense, but I think there's a reason that Bandai targeted these particular cards. So I want to start out with that. And I do thank Bandai for paying attention to the game and at least understanding what the meta decks are in the current environment, and taking at least some steps to help nudge the meta into in the forward direction. So from this ban list, I think I've learned three things from this. One, Bandai has a tolerance to recursion. I think that's pretty apparent through the bans of the Velgor loop into Tau loop by banning the Matt Sheeta card. Bandai also have a certain tolerance level with draw power. Even though we did see that Sakuya deck draw two-thirds to almost all of its cards in those two quick games in the Worlds tournament over the weekend, I think by targeting Stingmon, especially given that it doesn't have its once per turn effect, Bandai wants to limit just how easy it is for certain decks to acquire resources. And then three, I think Bandai really have their eyes on engines and decks that have really super cheap and easily accessible memory generation. Um, so from all these ideas, as I'm trying to figure out which deck to kind of pilot in the next few months, it really boils down to three things that I think determines a tier 0 in one deck. And that's a deck that has a ton of recursion, a ton of draw power, and very easy and efficient memory gain. And the second thing I just want to spend a couple of minutes kind of talking out loud about is the concept of the meta. And I think this is important because a lot of people have shared their thoughts so far about this particular ban list and kind of where the meta is today and where is it going in the future. And so as a new player, I wanted to first kind of set context and kind of define what a meta is. And so, what a meta is, from my purview, is the collection of dominant decks, strategies, and card choices that define a competitive environment. And as a person who's playing in this competitive environment, if I go to an event, these are the things that I'm most likely to see at those events, right? I think that's a good definition of the meta. And in that kind of definition, as a player, since I know kind of the common card choices and the dominant strategies that I'm going to encounter, I can then build a deck that does well into those matchups that I'm probably going to see, uh, understand the things that counter and interact with that deck in an advantageous way. And then within that, once I build the deck and the archetype, the sequencing that works best against those particular types of decks. And as a new player, it's really helpful knowing and assessing resources that talk about the meta, because I can go on these websites and just kind of net deck these decks and understand the game plan, the approach, and how these particular decks win in the meta environment. Um, the other thing I think that's really helpful, that really brings a lot of innovation, potential innovation in this space, is tech cards. And all tech cards really are, if you boil it down into a simple kind of definition, is cards that specifically target these likely and or popular strategies. And so, with all this being said, I hear a lot of people talk about, well, we need a healthy meta, or this is not a healthy meta. And so when I think about that concept of a healthy meta, all it means to me is it's the relationship and interplay between how dominant and how strong these strategies are, and how successful and or viable these tech cards or anti-meta cards can work against these strategies. And when we get to a space where anti-meta cards cannot work against these kind of meta strategies, I think we're now approaching the space of an unhealthy meta. The other thing that I also like about a healthy meta, and it really appeals to me and resonates with me as a player, a relatively new player in the Digimon card game, is the spice. Hi. Understanding a healthy meta encourages innovation in deck building and kind of pushes the game forward. So, for instance, Purple Hybrid, the hits to Purple Hybrid, I believe, needed to happen because it was solved, right? Everyone kind of understood what cards were needed for that deck to perform at its peak, right? And given all the cards that released over, God, whatever how many sets in the past, there weren't really many cards that could play and counter and do well in the Purple Hybrid matchup. Lord knows I've struggled trying to find a deck that works. So I think looking at things from that sense, it helps kind of put into perspective what we're doing here. And then the other thing I want to point out is the meta isn't necessarily an indication of the best cards that are out there. One thing that I really I'm having fun with so far in understanding the meta is building my own deck that's kind of anti-meta. And I have some card game experience. I played a little bit of Yu-Gi-Oh and Magic some years back, but I've always been the type to try to understand and analyze the meta, and then try to build decks or strategies that specifically counter the meta, right? Just to show people that, hey, you don't just have to copy the cards in the meta to be considered the best player. As for the channel, I don't have. I sat here for a while figuring out and trying to strategize the vision, where my niche is going to be, and all these other things. And I just told myself at the end, after watching some videos on getting into content creation, is just make the video. Just make the video. So I'm just going to treat this as an experiment for this channel. And the only thing that I want to get out of this is really just having a space to share my thoughts and musings about the game and my personal journey from being a relatively new player in the Digimon card game into hopefully becoming a competitive, highly skilled player, and kind of sharing that with other people who may want to join the game in the future and understand, hey, what's kind of the plan or the lanes or the process to get there. um, Consistency matters a lot in content creation. So I want, and my consistency in other areas of my life hasn't been the best. Who has, right? But I want to use this channel to see, can I really stick to something and be consistent about it? So uploading either 1 to 2 videos per week and learning and practicing that skill set. And then thirdly, there's some um, hard skills that I can learn through creating this channel. And that ranges from anywhere from communication, uh, public speaking or talking in front of a camera, video editing skills. Eventually, I can't just post a video with just me talking in the center, so I need to keep your attention. So I think it would be great to learn these skills, and also have nephews and other kids in my life that are interested in being content creators. So what better way to have someone to tell them that? But that's kind of what I hope to get from this channel. So thanks for listening, and we'll see where I get with the journey, and hopefully I can meet some of you and kind of turn this into something I can learn that's valuable for me in the future. All right, take care.